Hey there friends, how's it going? My name's Popeye. We got some more Uminkeo Chapter 3 for you today. This game has some pretty mature themes, including but not limited to death, murder, child abuse, torture, any of the above against a minor. Just general not good times for most of the characters because of this lady right here. Last time we saw the start of the third game, where basically most of the servants were called up to Grandpa's room, and it didn't go too well for them. Canon had a fight where he initially defeated one of the seven sisters in combat, but then the others came and quickly took care of him. And then I believe it was Genji finishes him off so he would have a peaceful death without much torture or anything. And then I believe he takes both Shannon and his own life, if memory serves. But I guess we'll see very soon. Oh yeah, and Beatrice wasn't happy that it just ended kind of without any any torture, any forms of, quote, entertainment. Okay, oh yeah, Shannon had provoked her. Something to the effect of Beatrice calling her, like, boring, doing the same thing over and over, and Shannon being, like, you'll never understand what it's like to care about other people and that kind of stuff. What was there that Beatrice didn't like? Was she still unable to remove the thorn of Shannon's words? Ronov laughed lightly, as though lamenting the complexity of the human and female heart, and ordered the seven sisters to go. After all, there were still two sacrifices left of the first twilight. The seven sisters cavorted as they disappeared. Dang, we were like 5 sentences away from finishing that scene. And then we only advanced like 2 minutes. Goda was doing the nighttime rounds. There had never been anything on Rokenjima outside the Ushiromiya family, so checking that all the doors and windows were all closed had no real purpose. However, ever since Natsuki had scolded them saying that this was careless, the nighttime rounds had become part of the servants' daily routine. The reason that Natsuki had ordered this was the occasional disturbances of the witch. Everyone who visited this island knew about the legend of Beatrice, the Witch of the Forest. This had become established as the island's characteristic ghost story. Because of that, it was only natural that some people would occasionally say that when they thought they were alone in the mansion, they had heard strange sounds or seen the shadow of a person. However, when that had created a little too big of a disturbance and reached Natsuki's ears, she made a fuss, thinking that some suspicious person might have been coming in and out. Apparently, it was said that she had roused all of the servants and had them checked throughout the mansion. Because of all this uproar over the witch had happened before Goda had come, he'd only heard about it from the more senior servants. Ghost stories like that could be found in any workplace. Even at the hotel Goda had once worked at, and at the restaurant, there was never a shortage of those types of stories. When he heard that story in this island, he smiled bitterly, thinking, so they have that kind of thing here after all. He smiled bitterly, but he thought, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and had not slighted that. Goda went along with it on the outside, but in his heart he thought it was a childish trick, at first. Hi, Cat. He could understand that if someone, doing the rounds on an eerie night like this, saw a lace curtain waving in the breeze from a window which hadn't been closed, they might be tempted to believe that they had seen a ghost. Or a cattail.
大怪我をして辞めた使用人もいるらしいし、 怪我は勘弁だな。俺もこの年だ。二度とこんな厚遇の職場には恵まれねえだろうよ。
I feel like Goda's not that old, honestly.
肖像画の魔女様、真面目に働きますんで、一つ穏便に頼みます。
Goda prayed to the portrait, his hands together as though he were at a Shinto shrine. That time, he thought he heard a sound. The kitchen? Is it the sound of something metal falling on the floor? Surely a mouse or a cockroach hadn't come out and knocked over some of the dishes. No, how could that be? It was routinely and thoroughly cleaned. Goda thought that in any case, he had better check what that noise had been and entered the kitchen. He turned on the kitchen light. When he did, he heard a strange sound. Clank, 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 clank. To a cook like Goda, that seemed to be like the lid on the pressure cooker or something was shaking. Of course, it couldn't be in use when no one was in the kitchen. If someone had been using gas, what a dangerous thing to do to just walk away from it. Just in case, Goda decided to inspect the area around the gas range. When he did, in the corner by the gas range, the pressure cooker really had been placed there, just as he had thought. But the flame wasn't on, and yet the lid was clanking. Was something fermenting and leaking gas? How could that be? Then there was a mouse or something inside. How could there be? Ridiculous. In front of people, Goda acted as though he had a bold personality fitting for his build. But he actually had an unexpectedly timid side to him. He was terrified to find out what might be inside, and he couldn't check it carelessly. Maybe Goda's in his, 50s, so maybe he is, being like, 5 years from retirement. In his cowardice, he grabbed a nearby wooden pestle, and with it a clunk. He tapped it a little strongly against the side of the pressure cooker. When he did, the clanking sound suddenly stopped. He should have been relieved now that it had stopped. But the fact that it had stopped when he hit it was even more eerie, and made him even more suspicious about what was inside.
この世に怪奇現象なんて存在しませんとも。そんな魔女も魔法もそんなもの存在するわけがない。
Oh, he pissed off the witch.
科学的に説明できるんです。お化けも魔女もいてたまるもんですか。
He repeated that many times, trying to build up his own confidence. It was quite comical how he looked completely different from what he was saying.
何が魔女だ。何が魔法だ。たたりだ。そら。正体を見せてみろ。そら。
He removed the lid of the pressure cooker, and lying exposed there was the sparkling, clean silver bottom of the pot. There was absolutely nothing frightening like he had imagined.
そりゃ当然です。中に何もいるわけがない。
By now, Goda realized he had been a coward. So while he still had some doubts about what had caused the lid to make that sound, he explained it away abstractly at some quirk or positioning of something and decided not to worry about it too much. Then he took the lid he had grabbed and softly set it back where it had been. It's alright, there won't be a sound, obviously. As if witches or magic could exist. Clank. Clank, 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 clank. Clank, 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 clank. Clank, 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 clank. I'm sure the subtitles for that will be very enjoyable. All the pots and utensils in the kitchen started clanking at once. It grew stronger still until finally it became so strong that the lid of one of the pots fell off. And from inside that pot, a slender white arm slowly stretched out. The lid fell off another pot, and another hand slowly stretched out, and another, and another. When the number of arms grew to 7, A shrill laughter split the air. Ah, it's the 7 sisters.
かっこいい。これほどの美味しいお料理を作れる人がこんな小物なんて本当にがっかり。あんたいらないんなら私がもらうわ。いっただき。ちょっとダメだってば。
They're talking about eating him, by the way.
私がもらうんだから。
Cat's fighting a wasp. He's like looking out the window and there's like the bug screen, but he's fighting a wasp. I don't think you want to fight the wasp, buddy. Come on, let's search. There's only one more. That old hag. Where is she? Not the mansion, maybe the guest house. You snooze, you lose, right? You snooze, you lose, right? Come on, search, search. Find her, find her. Don't get noticed by the relatives in the dining hall. Don't get noticed by the kids in the guest house. Search in silence, kill in silence. After all, it's still just the first twilight. She isn't in the guest house, but she wasn't in the mansion either. Hey, I found her, she's in the rose garden. Why is she standing around there without an umbrella? She's given herself up. All mine, all mine, all mine. You slowpokes can just sit there and watch. I told you, no, this one's mine. Come on, if we take any longer, we'll be scolded by Beatrice-sama. Let's take care of it all at once. Come on, found her, surrounded her. Come on, let's get along and do it all at once, okay? Die! Okay. Ooh, she's got some magic power, huh? Or not. So we learned some things about that. One, obviously the sisters are doing the killing. I think that was kind of implied, and we'd seen some pieces before. They're the ones doing the killing. Two, they said don't get detected. So the others could potentially detect them as they're going about. Three, they don't know where their targets are necessarily, so they don't have a omniscient view of the island or anything like that. They're just given a target and told go and kill them. Oh, maybe she did have strong powers. Let's see.
やんちゃなお嬢さんたちだこと。あの子のお友達かしら。
何こいつ、ババアのくせに。何かの間違いよ。もう一度。こいつ、どうして私たちを防げるの？どいて！もう一度よ！
何度やっても無駄だ。この個人、できる。
私はあの子を待っているのです。どうか呼んできてはくれます。
そのようなデッチ暴行、私たちがすると思う？
その必要はない。
ベアトリーチェ様。
私が権限するほどでございます。必ずやお目覚めと思いました。
ロノウェイ、久しぶりですね。本当に久しぶりです。
こいつ、ロ 上様を呼びつけに。
そしてあなたもお久しぶりですね、ベアトリーチェ。
こいつ、ベアトリーチェ様までも。
So I think this is implying that she knew both of them, maybe even before they became demon and witch. Because I guess we don't really know Ranave's backstory.
そのお方をどなたと心得るか。ベアトリーチェとはそもそもそのお方の名。
Hold up. You inherited the name from
そ
her.
のお方こそはわらわの師匠。
I have lots of questions.
先代ベアトリーチェ教だ。
Oh, is she the lady that we see in the garden when Beatrice is young in the flashback?
先代ベアトリーチェ教。
Are we gonna see her like transformed into that person? Gold butterflies appeared in ones and twos from the Garden of Roses and began to gather around Kumasawa. After becoming a golden radiance enveloping her, they burst and disappeared, and Kumasawa's form was no longer there. Yes, okay. Instead, there was another golden witch, the one who had in the past explained to Beatrice the path of an endless witch. The only person Beatrice had called master in her entire life. Her hair was long, beautiful, and vividly youthful, and her figure in that elegant dress was unrecognizable as an old lady. No, this looked like a completely different person than Kumasawa.
これはお師匠様。再びお会いできる日が訪れるとは夢にも思いませんでした。
What do you mean? You knew who she was. You knew she was a servant on this island. What do you mean? You could have showed yourself any time after you regained your powers, no?
私もですよ。よもやまた眠りを妨げられるとは夢にも思い
Or
ませ
is
ん
this a different person?
まったく厄介なところでお目覚めになられる。いつもの通りお休みであられたなら、第一の晩を何も手こずることなく終えられるのに。いや、むしろ歓迎すべきですかね。少々退屈しておりましたところで。
相変わらず悪趣味な遊びで罪もない人々をもてあそんでいるようですね。無限の魔女の力は決して人に迷惑をかけることに使ってはならないと何度も教えたはずですよ。
I don't know about sinless people.
そう言うなよ、お師匠様。退屈は私たちの天敵じゃありませんか。それから逃れるためのちょっとしたスパイスに過ぎませんよ。
So I guess the implications in the past, Kumasawa's golden witch form never materialized, therefore she couldn't protect herself.
侵食が進めば進むほどにわらわの力は強くなり、わらわの眷属は呼び出しやすくなる。しかしそれは同時にお師匠様の封印を解くことにもつながったとはな。
それを予見していたからこそ私はこうしてあなたのすぐ近くで眠りについたのですよ。願わくば二度と起こされぬことを夢見ながら、こうしてあなたと再会してしまったのは私にとってはとても悲しいことです。
相変わらずお師匠様は食えないな。
ロノウェ、家具の子たちを下げなさい。家具は主に使え。
Furniture children, my favorite kind of children.
すべての罪は主が背負います。
かしこまりました、マダム・ベアトリーチェ。
その名はもうその子に譲りました。さあ下がりなさい。家具の娘たち、私は一度聞かぬとしても二度言います。しかし三度目は口にしませんよ。
下がりなさい、煉獄の七姉妹。巻き添いになれば塵と化しますよ。
下がれみんな。
Ranave and the Seven Sisters of Purgatory retreated. After that, there was the Beatrice whose bold expression didn't falter, and the Master Beatrice who had given up that name and wore a composed smile.
さて、お師匠様、久しぶりの再会にはどんなお茶のご用意が良いかな。
そうですね。ほうき星の訪れよりも久しい再会です。もてなしてもらいましょうか。粗相があるようならば、我が名と無限の魔女の称号返してもらいますよ。
無限の魔女にも免許更新制度があったとはな。仰せのままにあなたの弟子がどれほど立派になったか、そしてとっくの昔にどれほどあなたを凌駕したか、とく
It looked like sparks exploded in the air between the two Beatrices. Beatrice. Just by glaring at each other, they purged all spirits from that space. So they watched the 7 sisters shivered. As if they had retreated just 3 steps less than they had, they would have already been turned to dust by now.
いらっしゃい、ベアトリーチェ。あなたにその名を譲ったことが私の生涯でただ一度の後悔です。その過ちを今自らの手で修正しましょう。
I'm trying to think what the implication then is Kumasawa the original Beatrice that grandfather fell in love with? And then somehow, after she'd given up her name and title to a younger Beatrice, like somehow his memories had been modified in some way?
そりゃあ違うぜ、お師匠様。わらわのただ一度の過ちはこの程度の力を学ぶのにあんたに弟子入りしちまったことだぜ。何が無限の魔女だ。こんなの気づくだけの力じゃねえかよ。それをもったいぶって偉そうによ。お前の出番はとっくに終わってんだよ。
Red Shoes fake.
もうわけがわからねえ。一体目の前で何が起こってんだ。
かわいそう。私の弟子が迷惑をかけていますね。謝ります。
あんた何者なんだ。熊沢のばあちゃんか。どうしてこんな姉ちゃんに化けるんだ。つうかあんた誰だよ。わけがわからねえ。これは何の特撮なんだ。俺は頭がどうにかなっちまいそうだ。
私はあの子の魔女の師匠です。かつての名はベアトリーチェ。あの子が私を継ぐ時にその名を送ったため今は名を持ちません。
あんたがすでに言い切っちまってるが、俺はあんたの弟子のせいで大いに迷惑しているぜ。頼むから責任取って何とかしてくれ。じゃなくて
Trying to see what's on her sash, what the symbol is. Is it just a stretched version of the one-winged eagle? I don't know. Not quite.
俺はこんなの信じねえぞ。魔女も魔法もあるもんか。こんなめちゃくちゃバトル俺は認めねえぞ。くそったな。俺は何を信じりゃいいんだ。
あなたらしいとても短気なもてなしですね。
さすがお師匠様。この程度じゃバカバカしくてまぶたを開く気にもならないらしい。島ごとぶっ壊す気でなきゃ無理らしいぜ。さあさあおいでなさい、双剣の戦闘。
In response to Beatrice's summons, a terrific earth tremor split the rose garden. On either side of her shoulders, two massive war towers sprouted and stabbed into the heavens. They reached 100... Is this not just meters? Where was... It's an Asuika reference? Okay. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. But about 1 meter. And had over 360 ports. They were war towers of the gods' army corps, which had not allowed the heroes of antiquity to invade their precincts even as they banded together. As Beatrice elegantly floated in the gap between the massive two-headed towers, she looked down on her master, sneering with an absolute superiority. With the two massive towers lined up behind her shoulders, the witch looked very small, like a butterfly dancing between the large trees.
蝶に化ければ買わせるとか思うなよ。双子塔の弾幕密度じゃあんた、虫ピンの昆虫標本どころかめった刺しの針刺し人形だぜ。
The tower's more than 720 ports opened, and godly soldiers readied their multi-shot ballistas. Also unclear if these are supposed to be the two rooks of the chess game. Ballista shots, numbering easily over 1,000, were all fired at once, drawing a beautiful geometric curtain of death. The boorish sound performed by those bowstrings was probably even deeper than the sound of death swinging his scythe. The sky was stained in incandescent red, and between the clouds a blazing massive tower fell upside down. That massive falling tower and its rubble swallowed the thousands of ballista shots, that not one of them approached the body of the witch who had summoned it. Yes, none can approach the mysteries of heaven. That was the truth of the fallen tower. So I think that's supposed to be a Tower of Babel reference.
私の手番は終わりませんよ。
Just pulled out a wand.
さあさあおいでなさい。イバルディの息子たち、我にふさわしき槍を与えたまえ。
As the massive crimson tower that had fallen made a mighty gold-colored explosion, from inside those flames a spear showed itself, of such massive proportions that he had to look up to see all of it, much like a tower. It was too large for even a giant's hand. It was a divinely beautiful spear of the gods, so massive that it gave the illusion that the tower which had fallen had turned into a spear of the same size. A spear of certain victory that no one could escape.
無用の双子塔ですね。自ら左右の退路を断つとは愚かしい。一本の槍をもお前は防げない。
She snapped her fingers in command. The massive tower-like spear shot at Beatrice like a lightning bolt. As the Golden Witch danced in the gap between the towers like a butterfly, sliced straight through the air like a flash of lightning, aiming right for the very middle of the absolute center of her heart with the most ultimate and extreme precision.
こんなところでグングニルが弾けるとは。やっぱりお師匠様はすげえな。 ハゼロ、役立たずの塔、いでよ、巨人兵の戦列よ。 その盾と胸で神なる槍を防ぎきれ。
Poor battler. The shoulder war towers exploded in gold. They became several billion gold butterflies. Those butterflies took the shape of 7 massive armored soldiers. Each stretched a full 50 marut into the sky. They lined up in front of Beatrice, protecting their master and holding massive shields which towered like windmills. Their massive size was evocative of a mountain range. The witch hiding behind them was like a small moon hiding behind the mountains. Once in the past, when the massive shields these giants held had been readied by the whole giants' regiment, they had protected King Wilhelm's castle, not only from arrows but from the wind and the rain. And when they had faced upwards and held their shields to the heavens, not a single raindrop had gotten through.
神聖への敬いを忘れた魔女の哀れなことです。神の槍を巨人ごときで防げるとお思いですか？
道理ですね。人間の金属でいくら武装しようとも神の槍は防げません。マダムの見事なエポレットメイトです。
それはベアトリーチェ様。
もちろん忘れませんとも、お師匠さん。さあさあおいでなさい、ヘパイストスと弟子たち。我にふさわしき盾を与えたまえ。
A golden whirlwind arose at the feet of the giant soldiers. It was a group of countless butterflies. They attached themselves to the massive shields like gold leaf, sparkling like they were a gold mirror. It was the absolute defensive wall that the king of the gods gave to the goddess. The Aegis shield. When the holy spear, which left a dignified tail behind it like a comet, crashed into the mountain range of that gold shield, there was a terrible thunderous roar. There was the creaking of the pillars that held up the heavens. The divine spear spun round and round, sent flying in the direction the sun sets.
ありえない。真相を防いだ。
いいえ、違います。神なる槍が避けたのです。絶対の槍と絶対の盾は争ってはいけないのが神々の掟。それはつまり防いだのと同じことですがね。
このような荒事ばかり腕を上げましたね。
むしろお師匠様はこういうお遊びが相変わらず苦手なようで、わらわからのお返しだ。法典にのっとり、槍には槍でお返ししましょうぞ。
The giant soldier battle line, which had fully blocked the divine spear, released their holy god shields. The shields fell to the earth, making the ground shake. And then another gold whirlwind arose, and the 7 gold shields changed their form into 7 massive spears of lightning lying on the ground. In unison, each of the giants lifted a leg high and firmly stomped on the tips of the handles. As the earth shook with a thunderous sound, the 7 lightning spears spun beautifully and flew up above the giant soldiers' heads. They covered everywhere in a spray of gold as they began to fall before the giants. Each of the giants squared off with the force of their whole body, and they kicked and smashed them to pieces. Those broken pieces numbered exactly 30 each and became lightning spears of exactly the same size as the original, which made 210 for all 7 of them, and all of those burst at once, each splitting into 30 thorns, so that there were 6,300. They became a thundercloud barrage, drawing out a beautifully geometric pattern. And each of those changed into 3 lightning bolts, that 18,900 lightning bolt shot at the predecessor, Beatrice. Certainly, a bundle of almost 20,000 thunderbolts should have reduced the Master's body to dust, but there was no impact. Beatrice knew immediately that she had been fooled. That moment, from the direction the sun was supposed to set, she felt an impossible ray of sunlight. A brilliant ray of light shone on her profile. It was the figure of the Master, holding aloft the spear of the god that had supposedly been repelled a short while ago. She bore a brilliant radiance like the sun on her back and made it shine on the incarnation of darkness. Beatrice, watching from there, was trapped like a mouse in a cage, cornered in a dead end formed by the giant soldier battle line. By now, the predecessor Beatrice had seized a position directly alongside the giant soldier battle line.
これでお勇気の時間はおしまいですよ、ベアトリ。このわらわが側面を許しただと。
Her bold expression hadn't faltered once before now, but now it twisted for the first time. And faster than Beatrice could click her tongue, the predecessor Beatrice released the holy spear. In mid-air, it sprung up into the air once more and changed its form once again.
さあさあおいでなさい、ドベルグの兄弟たち。我に巨人を砕きし天の鉄槌を与えたまえ。巨人兵ども、わらわを守れ。何をしているか、ノロマども。
By now it was no longer a spear, but a whirlwind of a massive hammer that raised a sound like a windstorm as it flew through the air. It was the legendary hammer that had shaken the king of the frost giants. The giant soldiers couldn't escape from that fear. No matter how much their master ordered them, they couldn't block the path of that hammer.
クランクメイト、安らかに眠りなさい。
Before the whirlwind of this massive chunk of metal, Beatrice was nothing more than a mere speck. The instant the whirlwind started to suck Beatrice in, Beatrice's form turned into a massive war tower. The iron hammer smashed the war tower, scattered tremendous amounts of rubble, but did not reach she who had escaped behind it. Furthermore, when the smoke started to settle, the war tower had sucked in the massive iron hammer without crumbling and blocked the way. Even the giant smashing iron hammer couldn't break through the final tower protecting the witch. However, this war tower was in fact the witch's last trump card. It was a war tower for dodging that could only save her from danger once. The tower is impregnable. No weapon could break through it. Just then, the moon disappeared. As Beatrice hid in the shadows of the giant soldier battle line and the war tower, she looked up at the sky. This does seem like a very chess metaphor. That her line of soldiers are pawns, she has castles. There's now a knight. When she did, inside the moon was the figure of a massive horse ridden by the god of war and death. The predecessor Beatrice rode the horse with him. Her cloak had blocked the moon and swallowed it in an eerie shadow, and the spear of the gods was in his hands once more. In other words, a godly knight who had jumped over the ramparts formed by the giant soldiers in the war tower was attacking from the heavens. Yeah, they've used a lot of chess terminology. So, before this, former Beatrice had used the term back rank mate, which is basically when your king is at the back line and there's a bunch of pawns in front of him so he can't move forward, and then you put a piece, usually either a rook or a queen, at the bottom that makes a full line. Now, it might have been hard to see, but on the knight that was there, as it was like coming towards, there was the text that said Smothered Mate. Smothered Mate is a chess finishing move where the king is stuck and has pieces all around them, and then you have a knight, and the knight attacks in an L shape, going like one across and then 2 in the other direction. So it can go this way, it can go that way, whichever way. And if the knight can then attack you while you have pieces surrounding your king, and if your king can't move and nothing can take that knight, that's what's called a smothered mate, because the king can't move at all to escape. Oh, there we go. The struggle to the death between the 2 witches with the same name was resolved. The spear that had been launched from the heavens pierced the ground. The giant soldier battle line and the war tower split up into countless gold butterflies, shrouding the area in a golden storm. Then the sound of thunder, and the sound of the falling rain and wind. Suddenly that place was the empty rose garden once more. The butler and the rest were watching the 2 witches confronting each other. But only Beatrice was different. She had been pierced straight through the heart, straight through by the spear, from the base of her neck and her right shoulder to her left buttock, unable to even reach the ground with her feet. Horribly exposed like a pitiful, pinned butterfly tormented by the wind and rain.
Beatrice 様。
さすが、恐ろ。
これで決着です、ベアトリーチェ。
Beatrice wore a bitter smile of false courage, but a strand of blood dangled from her mouth, making her look even more pitiful.
そしてベアトリーチェの名を今こそ返してもらいましょう。無限の魔女を語るにはお前は未熟が過ぎます。
やめて、許しておくれよ。
Cat, can you not?
ちょっとふざけただけじゃねえか。
あなたから我が名を奪います。元の姿に戻してあげましょう。過ぎたる力を手放し、己にふさわしい生を全うするがよいでしょう。
Her original form.
さあさあ、思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。
The predecessor Beatrice began to recite the words of power. When she did, small gold butterflies gathered around the skewered Beatrice and began to swarm about her. Like butterflies sucking the nectar out of flowers, they began to suck the magical power out of Beatrice, and it seemed that it caused her intense pain. A cry of agony escaped from Beatrice's mouth. She no longer had any power to resist it.
さあ目を閉じてごらんなさい。思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。さあ、ベアトリーチェ、あなたも私と一緒に復唱なさい。一緒にお歌を歌いましょう。そうすればすぐに終わりますよ。あなたの苦痛が少しでも早く終わります。
そうだな。お師匠様と一緒にお歌を歌うなんてどれくらいぶりかな。
さあ一緒に、さあさあ思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。
さあさあ思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。
When the two of them began to recite the same chant, more and more gold butterflies danced around, swarming around Beatrice.
大丈夫ですよ、お嬢様。あなたは私の弟子であることを失いますが、私の仕えるお嬢様であることに変わりはありません。 そうしたらまた一緒にご本を読んで差し上げましょう。リンゴのパイを焼いて差し上げましょう。昔のように。さあさあ、思い出してごらんなさい。
思い出してごらんなさい。そろそろ思い出せてきたかな。なあ、お師匠様。あんたの後ろにあるそれ。
何ですか？これは。
When the predecessor Beatrice looked behind her, there was a creepy hedgehog crouching there. No, it was herself. There was another predecessor Beatrice, whose whole body was packed with ballista shots, lying there like a pincushion doll.
さあさあ、思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。違うか。さあさあ、思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどうやって殺されたのか。
The predecessor Beatrice was shocked. Instantly, her form began to grow faint.
これはいつの間に。
最初に呼んだのは双剣の塔ではない。四つ子の塔だったのよ。お師匠様の左右はるかに潜んだ隠し塔が描くセブンスランクルークの死の境界線を。お師匠様はのこのこと踏み越えてきてくれた。チェックの発生が遅れてしまったことだけはマナー違反。率直に謝ろうぞ。
The battle had been decided at the very beginning. It had been over since the time that the predecessor had leaned forward, readying her holy spirit to attack Beatrice, who had been wedged between her shoulder towers. The hidden towers looking on either side had bathed her in a windstorm of ballista shots, from 720 ports on both sides, pinning and killing her. However, Beatrice hadn't wanted it to be resolved with that. She wanted to make her master take her next move, and had continued acting as though the game was still on. She had immediately revived her with the endless power and had made her continue the game as though nothing had happened. Then the predecessor slowly remembered that she had already been killed and began to completely erase her form. When she did, the spear which had pierced Beatrice also erased itself. Beatrice finally fell and landed on her feet. There wasn't even a trace of a scar.
楽しかったぞ。お師匠様。また遊びたくなったらいつでも蘇らせてやるよ。それで適当に遊んだら死体だったことをまた思い出させてやるからさ。なあ、ちゃんとあんたの言いつけや。おもちゃは遊び終わったらちゃんとおもちゃ箱にしまいましょうってな。
楽勝でございますか。
愚かに新章だ。四つ子島で騙せてなかったら死んでおったのはわらわの方よ。さすがはお師匠様だが、これで胸が張れるというもの。わらわは今こそお師匠様を完全に超えたとな。ロノウェ、お師匠様の亡骸をもう少しマシにしておけ。わらわもそこまで敬意を失ってはおらぬでな。
かしこまりました。今宵の第一の晩は少々派手に暴れすぎました。少しは片付けも必要でしょう。すぐに取り掛かります。ヤギたちよ、お片付けの時間ですよ。
When Ronove snapped his fingers, blazing, sparkling eyes began to blink open in the shadows, and darkness, becoming goat-headed attendants, which appeared one after another slowly out of the black. One by one, they lined up behind Ronove's back, wordlessly standing at attention.
この度は6人の遺体をどのようにいたしますか。また密室形式に。
わらわは今それをロノウェに任す。バトラーを悩ませるようなとびっきりの密室を頼むぞ。
かしこまりました。それではとびきりの。
それ、バトラはどこだ？バトラー！わらわの大活躍、見た？
ちくしょー！今のめちゃくちゃな魔法の嵐を見せつけられて、俺は何を否定すればいいんだ？魔女はいるも何も。あんなドッカンドッカン凄まじいファンタジーを見せつけられて、今の俺は何を否定すりゃいいんだよ。もうわかんねえ。前回もそうだが、このイーカス的なマジカルバトルをどう否定すりゃいいんだよ。
だよな。こんなの見ちまったらもう言い逃れはできねえもんな。さあバトラー、とんでも推理を聞かせてくれよ。
お嬢様、笑いに品がございません。
おお、これはすまぬ。しかしわらわの責任ではないぞ。何しろバトラにキューッと両目を固く閉じてキリキリギリギリ歯ぎしりするなんとも悔しそうなその表情を見せられると、自然とわらわの口からこぼれてしまうものでな。
さあバトラ様、くじけずにテーブルへお戻りを。お嬢様はバトラ様の反撃を期待されておりますよ。
ふざけるな何をどう反論すりゃいいってんだ。まずあの塔が地面から生えてきたあたりからもうめちゃくちゃだろうが、実は六軒島の地下に合体変形巨大ロボの秘密研究所でもあって、ボタン一つでおかしな塔が生えてくるってのか。ああ、それならあのでけえ巨人どもはきっとロボットだぜ。あるいは悪の秘密結社のメカ怪獣かもな。わけわかんねえよ。俺に話しかけるんじゃねえ。
ほらほらほらほら、泣くなよ。魔法でドッカンドッカン。そなたが望むなら月だって砕くし、水星を雨のようにだって降らすさ。お前好みのムチムチ姉ちゃんで島を埋め尽くしてやってもいいんだぜ。さあさあ、ほらほらほら、わらわの手を受け手をさせよ。反撃しろよ。できねえだろ。できねえのは船長も承知よ。
Is this even fun for Beatrice at this point?
お前こういうのダメだもんな。こういうファンタジー本当は大好きなんだもんな。知ってんだよ。今時こんなの巷にいくらでも溢れてるじゃねえか。漫画に小説、アニメに映画。10代くらいのガキンチョたちがおかしな特殊能力いっぱい持ってて、世界の命運かけてドッカンバッカンやるやつ。お前も大好きだもんな。知ってんだよ。隠すなよ。大好きじゃねえかよ。そのお前の大好きなやつがちょいと目の前で披露されただけじゃねえかよ。どうして漫画やアニメのそれは信じてくれるのに信じろよ信じろよ、信じちまえよ。反論なんかできねえさ。こうして見せられちまったんだからな。ほらほらほらほら、返事をしろよ。思考はいらねえ。素直にごめんなさいベアトリーチェ様って言え。ほらほら言ってみろ。ごめんなさいベアトリーチェ様って言ってみろよ。言えよ言えよ、恥ずかしがるな。
I think we'll stop it there, but a lot of interesting things came out of that. A lot of questions. I honestly don't know how you would counterattack that at all. But hopefully Battle Earth will figure something out next time. Bye for now.